Hey, it's Deborah Pardes. Welcome to Voices of Swell. It's October 2020, almost November. So some of you may recognize Meredith Scott Lynn in a way that makes you say, wait, how do I know you? And you swirl her face around your head for a second, and then maybe you remember her from Legally Blonde or a host of other amazing movies and television shows. So if you Google her name, you're going to see all her accomplishments as an actor. But today we've got a bigger subject to cover than the big screen or the tiny screen. And that's what's been happening over the last 10 years. Screens are getting smaller and maybe so have our brains. And that's a good corny segue to talk about Right Brain Books. Right Brain Books is a K-12 children's education company that Meredith founded in 2014. It's the first ever curriculum in the art of children's book authoring that is both literacy and social emotional skills building. Now, we're going to talk all about that, so just hold on. But I'm going to link the website of Right Brain Books right here so you can click on it. There's incredible videos, incredible stuff. So you can go and indulge. Please do. Right Brain is now in 48 states. 50,000 kids are using it. And Meredith, I want to thank you for being here and also for focusing your soul on kids. And the fact that you are now dedicated to it for 24/7 to education, we are so lucky for all of us, for the future for sure. But I want to talk to you right now about you. So first of all, how are you? And if you had to sum up your life after you tell us how you are, I know this sounds crazy, but can you sum up your life as a quick Wikipedia page? Like, what do you want us to know about you? Forget Google. Like, give us okay, this is Meredith, who I am, and then we'll go from there. I'm super excited that you're here. As promised, here is the URL of Right Brain Books.
Hi, Deborah. I'm super inspired and delighted that you asked me to be a voice on Swell. It's an honor. Encapsulate my journey kind of like a Wikipedia intro. The short story would be that I grew up a really charismatic and creative kid. I was pretty brilliant. I did really well in school. I did really well on the test at the end of the week. But when the big state standardized test that is designed for a particular kind of learner that might not be the kid taking the test that day, I found that my smarts had no place. So where I had a 98 average in trigonometry in my math class, I didn't even break 600 on the math portion of the SAT in New York State, where I could communicate and I could write well and I had a way with words. I didn't break, 500 on the reading portion, the reading and writing portion of the SAT. So I was not a brilliant test taker, but lucky for me, my creativity was valued. There was room for it. The education system in the public schools of New York, I grew up in Brooklyn and Queens, and then I moved to Manhattan when I was a teenager to go to the High School of Performing Arts. My parents, traumatized by their own respective life stories, somehow knew that letting me be an expressive, creative young person was a good idea. And because they knew that about me, despite my frizzy hair, deep voice, and small titties, I developed some self-esteem pretty early on. And even though a lot of my self-esteem maybe for a long time was directly connected to how successful I was at elevating your self-esteem. So if I could elevate your self-esteem, then that gave me self-esteem. I did my work through that. And having been an actress for a really long time and one could say successfully. I mean, I suppose I I believe the story I've told myself that I was meant to be like a famous and financially rewarded television actress who would also do movies. But that wasn't my story. My story was different, and I trust that my story led me to where I am here. And the short story about what I'm doing here is that I went to visit my sister, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And when she took a shower, I picked up my 10-month-old niece to read her a story. And the book that I picked up had pictures and no words. So I made up a story to keep myself and Lila entertained. And I thought, oh my God, what a great story. What a great idea. Children's books with no words that maybe have lines on the pages so that anyone, any child could write their own children's book by interpreting the images through their lens. What a self-esteem building, creative act of self-expression that would immediately and instantly give a young person a sense of why their voice matters. So that's the short story of what happened.
I'm so with you in the description you just gave us, because I know the frustration of being good in one skill or being good in general and having a capacity to understand the world and being emotionally intelligent perhaps and just being an all-around amazing person. And then you sit down at a test and you totally just don't show up because it's not the world that you excel in. Are you seeing a parallel to what you experienced as a student back then to the world that we live in today?
So the thing is, Deb, that there are many different learning styles, and we are all different humans and we learn in different ways. And yet the system, the education system, is designed to be one size fits all. So unless you're in a specialized school, an expensive private school, or like a really cool kind of artsy-fartsy focused program, there is curriculum. It's considered core. There are standards that are defined by a group of people that may or may not relate to or have similar experiences to most of the students in that state or district, right? There are national standards, and then there are state standards. And so there are national standards. This is stuff that every teacher has to incorporate when teaching, say, English language arts. And these are standards every teacher has to hit who's teaching math. And none of it takes into account the experience that a student might have had at home the night before, right? So maybe you're a student who goes home at night, has a loving parent who really shows up to help you with your homework, doesn't fight with daddy or mommy, and everybody sits down, has a really healthy meal that's not full of carbs and sugar, and then you get a great night's rest and you show up for the test tomorrow, right? Or you're Carlos or you're Maria, and Maria or Carlos goes home and mommy's really stressed out and had a hard day because daddy's drunk and has 3 jobs, and the food on the table are carbohydrates and processed vegetables, right? I don't get a great night's sleep. I show up for the exact same test as the student who has a ton of support at home, got a great night's rest, and isn't fueled by processed crappy food. So, I mean, we could do an entire Swellcast. We could have a conversation that could go on for hours just about how nutrition plays a part in how a child's brain shows up for academia, right? So this is like it's a rich topic that is so wrought with so much sickness and so much racism and so much it's status, it's privilege, it's access. It's just scary, right? And And it makes me, it's upsetting. It's angering. It's angering because it's been this way forever. In light of the global pandemic, there's just a spotlight on more of it than there was before. But it's not like there are more opportunities for students now that everyone could learn online. It's like the kids who can afford the devices, or there are kids who can't afford the devices, and the city or the state has given them the device. But guess what? They have five students in one house, and they don't have the bandwidth or the internet capacity to even get online and do the learning, right? So this is a much bigger conversation than even one Swellcast can contain. So anything you ask me, there's too much to say about it, so I want to say that right off the bat, because it's impossible to trim or focus on a particular thing, because everything connects to something else, and it's just a big old domino effect. And the system, the bottom line, Deb, the system is designed, like most systems, to have certain kids make it through and certain kids not. And that's the way it is. If you're poor and you're brown, you're not supposed to get through.
Meredith, I feel your core passion about this, and I've got to just drop into this big question of what do you think the education system values in a student?
Okay. The thing is, it's not about what the education system values. It's about what it doesn't value, right? And I want to say that there are lots of educators who do value the things I'm about to talk about. And the main focus of our company for the longest time is the world of after-school education, expanded learning. Because in after-school education, which I didn't even really know about until I founded Right Brain, that's where whole student development is kind of all they can do. You can't come after school, sit down and just look at dry academic material. The whole point of after school education is to support the school day and supplement it with stuff that inspires kids. And let me tell you that after school education used to be babysitting. Give them a basketball, give them a craft, something to do for all of the kids whose parents are working and can't just pick them up at 3:00. So it's the underserved. It's the poor. It's the brown. It's the poor white kids. It's the poor brown kids. It's the kids who need a place to be for 3 hours because their parents can't pick them up till 6:00, right? And my company, actually, we were the first literacy program that you would see at a conference and purchase. We were the first project-based writing program in after-school education. We were the only writing program at dozens of after-school conferences for years, right? And the reason it worked is because that world, there were educators, teachers who taught in after-school, or facilitators who are not accredited teachers, and their job is to see a kid walk in after a school day where they've been learning in fear. They've been worried to raise their hand. Maybe they have an accent. Maybe they're an English learner. They talk funny. Also, maybe they're in California or New York. There are 35, 40 kids in a class. There can't be that individuated attention and instruction. It's not possible. There's no time. They come into an after-school program and someone's like, hello. They look at them. I see you. I see you. I value how you feel. I value what you have to bring to the next 45 minutes that we're together. And in the school day, it's about sit down. Let me get to the lesson that I am required to teach you today, the standards I am required to hit. And you better get it today or real soon. I hope you have the support at home with your homework. I hope you have someone at home who helps you reflect on what we're learning today, because I got to get to the new stuff tomorrow. So there isn't a whole lot of time to make sure that you got it, that it's sunk in. So if you have tutors and you have the support to really hone the information, you'll probably do really great on the state test, right? Or on the test at the end of the week. But that's the reality for just a fraction of the population. And whole student development is, in these pandemic times, much more the focus of lots of educators. Social emotional learning, that said, during the school day, in most schools, I'm not saying privatized and specialized schools, there still isn't time. There's no time to get, because there are no, social emotional learning isn't on the test, right? But what if a student was given the test, if I was given my SAT orally and I could respond orally, I'd have kicked ass.
So you guys came in, you're the first of its kind doing the work you're doing. I think it's a great time right now to story time. Like, tell us a story about a child or a teacher or a school system that you have worked with that you can say, wow, yes, and this happened, and this is an example of a good result because creativity and SEL was incorporated into these kids' lives. Can you just tell us a story so we can smile with you and take a breath?
You know, there's no one story. There are so many. We get testimonials, emails, calls all the time from teachers of all walks of life. They're teaching during the school day, they're teaching in after school hours, and they'll send an email. And it's not, here's what's so great about it. We designed all of our programs and our beautiful, colorful resources. It's all designed to be as inspiring for the educator as it is the student. And that really makes it special and sets us apart. It's going to be really fun when everybody finds out about us so that the company can get profitable and be all that it's meant to be. But it's changed children's lives in a moment. It's changed educators' lives in a moment. Right now we're working with the Palm Springs Unified School District, the woman who runs the supplemental and enrichment programs. They serve thousands of kids. It's Palm Springs, it's California, and it's the kids who need supplemental and enrichment, and they have to do it in after-school hours because during the school day, they have to do what's required. So she serves thousands of kids. Most of them, the majority of them, are what would be classified as English learners, which means English is not the first language being spoken in their home. So, again, this English learner student, and this whole idea that students are classified, and English learners take special tests, and they have to pass them to be reclassified. I mean, that's a whole conversation on its own, right? But the fact that Timmy in class has family members who speak the language that the homework is in, and, Carlos goes home and is on his own because his parents came here 13 years ago, but just don't really know the English language well enough to help him with his homework. Those two kids, Timmy, who has the help at home simply because everyone in the house speaks the English language, which is what the homework is in, Carlos gets the same test on the same day. So just to bring that back around. So there's no one story, but on our website, if anyone goes to the bottom, there are two big boxes. One says in-school videos, one says after-school videos. And those videos really tell the story. I have a couple of stories. I have two stories they're not happy stories, but they have a really beautiful connection to right brain and what these young people did with our program proved to be the most sort of important thing left to their families and to their school community when tragic things happen to these kids. So there are obviously countless. Every right brain experience that a kid has is a positive one. But we have a couple of stories. One I want to tell you that sort of comes back around to prove in a way that is unfortunate. I wish for this school and community that this didn't happen. But in one of our videos on the website, in the after school video section, there's a video called Right Brain with Fourth Graders After School or something. And a lot of kids in the poorest county in California were doing Right Brain in their after school program, getting illustrated children's books that have no words, lines on the pages, and the kids were writing stories and going through this program and publishing books. And we went to make a video. This was a beautiful thing that it was happening, and I wanted to go film it and make a video about it, so that the after school program could show it to the people who donate to their program. If they're federally funded, they could prove how they're using their funds in a really important, magical way. And we went and we made a video, and a 13-year-old boy showed up to the Young Authors event where he was going to receive his published Right Brain book, because after you write a story, you can go on our book builder, you type in your story, and you get a hardcover published copy of the book you wrote. K through 12, right? There are high schoolers doing it. This kid was 13. He wrote a book, and I said, who wants to read their book today at the event? And this kid's hand shot up, and all these teachers ran over to me. You don't want that. You don't want this. This kid's a stutterer. It's going to take forever. This is going to be a nightmare. And I said, listen, if this kid is insecure about public speaking and raised his hand to share his book, we're going to let him do it. So the event happens. All these people show up in the library, and it's time for him to share his story. And let me tell you, it took forever, just like they said. It was a good 25, 30 minutes of this sweet boy getting through his. It was incredible. There was not a dry eye in the house. Everybody knew that this kid never raised his hand, and somehow he wrote this story. He wrote this book, and he just had to share it. What a meaningful experience. And I interviewed his mother, and she's in the video, and she says, this is stuff that you can't do for them. They have to do it for themselves. And anyway, it's a really beautiful part of the video, and everybody cries when they see this mom talking about her son. Well, 2 years later, we got a phone call from this after school program and the school where this student went to school. And they said that this poor boy, who had been really tortured by other kids for his speech impediment, and he took his own life. This kid took his own life at 15. And they called to say that the only proof of him having been at this school and had an impact is this video that we made and his book that he wrote. And they show this video all the time, and they use it, and the family has it to look at him being proud and sharing his story. This kid who took his own life. And I just wonder if he had Right Brain, if he had this opportunity way earlier, if we had been around sooner, would he have become more confident sharing publicly, sharing his story, speaking? Would he have maybe had a level of confidence that didn't allow for that level of torture and torment from other kids? I mean, who knows? So, we all wish that we had these opportunities to be seen for our creative expression, our self-expression early. If we start early, kids might like themselves by the time they get to high school. They might even have more empathy.
That is incredible. And I'm thinking out loud here, because when you hear a story like that, the what ifs, I mean, it's impossible to know anything. But the role all of us play in people's lives is we never know how we impact people until something is said at a moment when you're like, wow, I didn't know this person really cared or had such a relationship to what I did. And clearly this young, beautiful spirit was meant to be a storyteller. We're on Voices of Swell right now, which is a very specific channel where I get to focus on the people and a little less on the vocation and their work, as much as more on who they are. And I love that we have done a deep dive here because it's so who you are right now. And I have to ask you about your journey engaging with all these people and doing all this work. And I feel like people listening, who have ideas and passions, and I don't want to make this like an advice column, but I do think you're in a position right now, given the fact that you've been doing Right Brain for so long after a huge career. This could be chapter 2 of many chapters, but this is a huge chapter 2 for you. So can you talk a little bit about your transition from being one person and in one kind of world to being this new person in this world and helping people see, I guess the word for me is possible. Like, it's so amazing. I'm really inspired by you. And can you just speak to how you are in this, like, how did you do this, and what were the demons in you and what were the angels in you, and how did you make this transition and sort of help those who are maybe on the same path?
Well, okay, Pivot City. I love that. We're off education and we're on to second chapters and other chapters. And I will say that first, thank you for qualifying. My career is huge. I definitely worked a lot. I definitely had a lot of exposure to all different aspects of film and television. I got to act, I got to write, I got to produce, I got to direct. But I got to do that because I made those things happen for myself. So I would not say that I had a huge career, but I definitely was busy and productive and creative. And when Right Brain, when the great idea popped into my brain and spirit, it was too good to not drive me to see it. I had to see it. The way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So as an actress, I see the material. Oh my God, I love it. I can see how good or how funny or how emotional or whatever the scene is. I have to bring it to life. I have to see it. Same thing. Had this idea, had to see it. Before I let something go, I have to see it. Same way that before you end a relationship, you have to give yourself fully to it, get all in order to know, right? The only way out is through. So when Right Brain dropped into my head, it was sort of the truth is, if I had a huge career as an actress, I would not have had time to make Right Brain happen. But I was in a pause in that there weren't the same opportunities as there was at one time. And so I was able to keep myself busy and productive and creative outside of just waiting for auditions, because that can't be an actor's life. I used to coach actors and I was an audition coach, not an acting coach. And I would tell them all the time, if your life is about sitting around waiting to find out if you get to put your scene up at acting class and what auditions you have, you're going to be a pretty unhappy, miserable actor, because actors, all we have, if you're an accountant, you have to have a certain skill set. And if you can just prove that you know how to work with these numbers, you can probably be an accountant. But actors have, we have to fill our tool chest. We have to fill our toolbox with life experiences. So as soon as you're not living a life of purpose, as soon as you're not having experiences outside of auditioning or hoping you get an audition, and these days most actors have to create their own content, make their own content. I mean, actors who are seeking representation and want opportunities. If you're just waiting around for someone to give you permission to do your thing, you'll be pretty unhappy. And what Right Brain allowed me to do, I just kept going. I just kept going and staying busy, making it happen. And I didn't need anyone else to give me permission. it took me a minute to raise some money to make it happen. But it was me giving myself permission to do the work necessary to earn the trust and faith of potential investors. And then once you raise money from people, and these were friends, people I knew, people who knew me through a friend. These were not venture capitalists. That's you don't sleep until they get their money back. And if I'm totally honest, that I was a first-time CEO. I did 1 million things right, and I did 2 million things wrong. And, we're a very successful company in the way that like Ralph Waldo Emerson defines success. But if you're just looking at bottom line, numbers on a spreadsheet, the company might be worth a lot of money because of all of our intellectual property that we've created and the artwork we own. But on paper, I can't honestly tell you that I've done the best job by this company. When you're a founder and CEO of a startup of this nature, you're the CEO, you're the CFO, you're the COO. And I know that got cut off because this is what it's like dating me. I just go on and on. So the point is that I didn't find the kinds of investors that stay on you like a hawk and make sure that you don't make certain mistakes. That said, I was if I had raised traditional kind of money and was asked to do things in a traditional kind of way, the company could have failed a long time ago. So I don't know. I think I want to say in the way that you said, it's not an advice column, but I want to say that if you give yourself permission and if you have faith that you're showing up for the right reasons and bringing your absolute best, most caring self to the process, to the experience. And if I could go back, if I could change one thing and one thing only, I would make sure that caring, a person's ability to really care and prove to you that they really care, to me, that's the number one qualifying factor for a new hire. And that was a rough lesson for me. It's back to that, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So if someone is not a deeply caring person, don't hire them. Don't hire them no matter what they are good at. And if they're better than everyone else at that one particular thing, but somebody else who's not as good at that thing cares more, hire the person who cares more. Because they can learn. You cannot teach a person to care. Pivot City, yet again. Anyway, I go on and on, so I'm going to end it here to see if anyone listens or has anything to say, because there's just no topic that I can't talk about for 5 solid minutes. How annoying, how obnoxious. This Swellcast is definitely not going to be my dating profile. I'll be single forever. Thank you for including me.
It's no doubt that you care so much. And hearing this swell conversation is so inspiring. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time to share such detail, such passion, and such understanding of what the system is right now. And what you're doing is so important. And I hope you feel lifted by the students and the teachers that just look at you all the time and say thank you. Because sometimes in life, that's what we get. And it's real and it's meaningful. And what you're doing is so beautiful and so critical to our future. As corny as that sounds, without people like you innovating and caring about the real stuff, the stuff that makes people whole, we would be in big trouble. And I know that what you're doing is, even based on this one conversation, for those of you who never have met Meredith or haven't gone to her site yet, even in this conversation, there's just unbridled passion. And we need more of that in the education system. Anybody who's here and listening would love to hear your thoughts about your experience, either bringing up kids or being a kid yourself, and what it felt like to be in a system that doesn't completely look at all of you and just the parts of you that slot into their system of reporting. This is a huge clarion call to all of us to make sure we can expand how we measure the talents of a student, and thinking and feeling and writing and social emotional learning. These are the things that create the full human being. So thank you again, Meredith, and I look forward to this conversation expanding out into the world.
Hey Meredith, I'm a big fan of the work you're putting out here right now. I took a look around your website, and the question I have for you is, do you have any ideas or a vision for how educational curriculum should change in order to better nurture experiences and development and skills in students, so that when they graduate high school, they're prepared and ready to take on the world? If you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. Thanks.
Hi, Brooks. It's Meredith. Thank you for your question. This is fantastic. I appreciate you finding your way to this and listening to the whole thing. Thank you for looking at the website. That's fantastic. I have lots to say on this topic, but here at the end of the first day of counting votes in this election, I'm probably not in the perfect position to respond as robustly and with as much articulation as I'd like to. But in short, you said something in your question. You used the word experience, and that would be a nice thing to integrate if there were experiences. I believe in experiential learning. I like not just me, I think that anything that can be remotely project-based, anytime a student of any age can really make connections to how what they're learning is meaningful for them, they're going to have more success. I think that curricula needs to stop being one size fits all. In places like California, New York, where the class size is so massive, it's just impossible for curriculum to meet the needs of every type of learner. And there are many different learning styles, more than just the 8 that are so well known and established. There are more than 8 learning styles. So I think also the curricula is often designed to the test, right? So we're seeing little shifts there, but as long as we are testing all learners in the exact same manner under the same circumstances, you're going to see what the system was designed for us to see, which are the students who have a little leg up on literacy, with help at home, parents for whom English is a first language. Maybe their parents have one job, not 2 or 3. Maybe one parent has a job, one's home with them. It is a fact that there are a ton of bias sort of driven moments in curricula and testing. We know this. There are states where certain absolute events are not in the textbooks. I mean, it's just so cuckoo crazy. Anyway, I have lots to say about it. And also, teachers need to be inspired when they're handed a tome of curricula. There needs to be a reason beyond the test, because kids will smell it. Kids will smell it on a teacher when the teacher's not inspired. And the really good teachers who got into teaching to innovate and change the game for students are often finding that that's not an option. There's no time. Also, I think that very important aspects of a student's education in a particular year, I think they need to be extended. I don't think children can really grasp very vital concepts and learning strategies in the day or two, the 2 hours that they might be taught. Anyway, I always hit my 5 minutes here. There's too much to say. Thank you, Brooks. Thank you very much.
Hey, Meredith. Thank you for taking the time to respond. I very much appreciate your focus on experiential learning. I think that is extremely important. I would say one of the biggest failures of the education system is the fact that it's designed to just keep shoving information in front of the students' faces and force them to, quote, learn, when really it's just memorize it for the test, try to pass the test, and then they move on with their lives and it all falls out the other end of their brain. But what I found for myself growing up in school, I always asked questions. I asked endless questions. I would be in the teachers' classrooms outside of class asking questions that weren't even related to the class. And I think that it's because I always sought deeper answers and deeper explanations, and I always wanted to understand why things were useful or how they connected into my entire understanding of the world. And I think all of that is really what made the learning valuable for me. And it's also what helped me retain all of that information as well. And so I would love to see much more experiential learning, much more focus on the applications of learning rather than simply learning itself. I would love to see project-based learning. I would love to see the opportunity for students to design study projects for themselves as an alternative to taking an elective, and research exactly what they are interested in, and put together a report, put together a project, and have that be one of their credits at the end of the semester. I would also say that given our current capabilities with technology, that we should really be able to bridge the gap in between students and people in industries and in positions that they are interested in, and get them closer to mentors who can answer questions about what they really care about. But maybe that's a different topic. I have a follow-up question for you, though, Meredith. What topics or issues do you think are never even touched upon in the educational curriculum that you think should be? I have a few examples myself. I think basic medical knowledge should be included in education. This is something that not only I think, but I've heard it from many kids themselves, but they want better access to like financial information. Like, what do I do when I graduate high school, and how do I find a job? How do I find an apartment? How do I budget for expenses? I've heard that from a niece of mine. And I have a bit of a unique background in that my childhood was a little complicated. Without going too much into it, the main point I want to bring out is that I moved around to many, many different schools. I've seen the education system in many places all over the country, and there's not a lot of consistency in the kind of topics that are available widely. One example is electronics courses. I barely had the opportunity to take one semester of an electronics course, and I really wanted to continue, but I moved, and I never came across another course like that. So those are a few of the examples that I care about, but what are some of the topics that you would like to see brought up in education?